This is OwlUp, where learning happens in minutes, not hours. For a deeper journey, explore all our courses at owlup.co. Now, let's dive in. Chapter 4 of Land Your Dream Job, the Modern Interview System. The STAR Method 2.0. Tell stories that get offers. In this chapter, you'll learn: define the STAR method and its components. Let's dive in. Half the time, the candidate who tells the better story gets the offer, even when the resume is weaker. In one interview, two people solved the same problem. Only one described what they learned and why it mattered to that company. Hours later, the panel remembered just one name: 42 to 58%. That's how much more likely candidates are to be rated strong higher when they add two simple elements to their behavioral answers: what they learned and why it matters for this job. Most people stop at, "I did X and it worked." Interviewers are listening for, "Here's how I think now, and here's how I'll create value for you." You're no longer just competing on what you've done. You're competing on how clearly you can connect the dots between your past and the company's future. That's where STAR 2.0, STAR, comes in. Situation, task, action, result, plus reflection and relevance. Think of those last two as the interest and principal in a savings account. They're what make your stories grow in the interviewer's mind long after you've left the room. In this episode, we'll turn your experiences into offer-winning assets. Most candidates treat interview prep like cramming vocabulary. They memorize a few STAR stories and hope the right one comes up. Top performers build a portfolio instead. They map 8 to 12 core stories to the skills the role actually demands, like leadership, data fluency, stakeholder management, or dealing with ambiguity. Then tune each one on the fly. That's how they avoid sounding scripted and still hit what matters. In this episode, we'll connect your stories to the job description, company strategy, and even the interviewer's background, so every answer feels tailor-made rather than generic. Most people say they use STAR, but listen closely and you'll hear something like 40 seconds of background, a vague, "so I took initiative," then a result with no numbers. Interviewers smile, nod, and quietly mark average. To move into the top tier, you're going to tighten the structure you already know and then deliberately layer in those extra R's. Start with timing. Aim for about 20% on context, S plus T, and 80% on what you did and why it matters now, A plus R plus R plus R. That usually lands you in the 90 to 120-second sweet spot. If your situation alone takes a full minute, you're losing them. The quickest fix? Strip out anything that isn't directly needed to understand your decision. Company history, side characters, long problem build-ups, cut. Next, upgrade your actions. Instead of, "I collaborated with stakeholders," zoom in on how you made decisions. "I interviewed 7 sales reps, coded their feedback into 3 themes, and used that to prioritize our roadmap." Interviewers are listening for judgment, not just activity. For the result, your job is to put a clear price tag on what happened. If hard numbers are hard to get, estimate responsibly. We cut onboarding from roughly 4 weeks to under 3, which meant new hires were productive about 25% sooner. Even directional metrics make recall jump. Now for the part most candidates skip, explicitly walking through what changed in you. Reflection can be as simple as a before-after contrast. Earlier in my career, I would have pushed my preferred solution. Here I learned to test a scrappier prototype first, which saved us weeks. Finally, connect the dots out loud to this role. Use the job description's language. You're scaling a remote team across time zones. This experience running a cross-continent launch is directly relevant because one subtle advantage of this structure: once you practice it with 8 to 12 stories, you can remix on the spot. A question about conflict? Emphasize stakeholder dynamics. A question about ambiguity? Emphasize how you made calls with incomplete data. Same story, different lens. Still crisp, still targeted. Here's where STAR gets practical. Think of each story as a small investment decision. You have limited attention capital in an interview, so you want the highest return for the role in front of you. Instead of asking, "Which story is my biggest win?" ask, "Which story will appreciate the most in this company's context?" For example, if you're interviewing at a fast-growing startup, emphasize experiments, speed, and scrappy fixes. At an established firm, tilt the same story toward risk management, cross-team alignment, and process. Same events, different asset class you're highlighting. Concrete test. After you draft a story, write a one-sentence headline for it in plain language a busy VP would care about, like, "Cut support tickets by 30% in 90 days without extra headcount," or "Turned a hostile client into a case study partner in 1 quarter." If you can't distill it, the story's probably still too fuzzy. As AI tools start drafting cookie-cutter responses, interviewers will treat your star stories less like performances and more like lab reports. They'll probe how you think, adapt, and update your hypotheses after each outcome. The edge won't be having stories, but being able to remix them live for different roles, levels, and cultures. Your challenge this week: record one answer, then revise it twice, once for a startup, once for a global enterprise, and notice how your emphasis shifts. Treat each star story like a train route. You choose where it starts, which stops matter, and where it pulls into the company's station. Over time, you'll spot gaps. Maybe you lack failure examples or cross-functional wins. That's your roadmap for new experiences to seek out now, so future interviews feel less like guessing, more like scheduled arrivals. Start with this tiny habit. When you finish a work task, even a small one, say out loud, "Star check," and quickly name just the S and T, the situation, where, when, with whom, and the task, what you were supposed to do. Don't worry about the action or result yet. Literally 15 seconds of S was T was do this for just one task per day, and you'll start building a mental library of real stories you can later plug into the full STAR 2.0 structure for interviews. This was OwlUp, your daily step forward. This series continues with more chapters on OwlUp.co. Visit OwlUp.co to access the complete course and continue your learning journey. See you there!